I'm here with my co-host Melissa, and we're actually going to be changing the name of this podcast. I know before it was previously called The Giants, so we were introducing ourselves as the Giants podcast, but through uh, through finding out that we're nowhere near gonna be able to be found on YouTube, we're gonna change our name. Melissa, what's the name?
Evolving the conversation.
Yes, Evolving the Conversation podcast. So that's what we're going to be known as. And hopefully it's a little bit easier for everyone to find on YouTube as opposed to just typing in the Giants and getting football. But yeah, we're here today and we're going to be discussing Melissa's healing journey. She is sort of recently back from Peru, where she went to go and drink ayahuasca with Maestro Hamilton. Is that I'm not sure. Is that Blue Morpho or
Yeah,
is
Blue
that another?
Morpho.
It's Blue Morpho. Okay,
hmm
because I and is the Heliconia Lodge Blue Morpho's lodge or is how does that work?
No, the Heliconia Lodge, I think they may have made the ceremony house there specifically for Blue Morpho, but the lodge exists separate from Blue Morpho. And when you're there for the week, there's other guests that are there for the tours and excursions and things that they offer.
Oh, okay, cool. So yeah, we're gonna be getting into the nitty-gritty of it today with your healing
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah.
So yeah, take it wherever
Take it away.
yeah, take it away wherever you'd like to
Yeah.
guide
I
us
would like to
on.
say that this is just part of the healing journey, definitely not all of it, just to give myself lots of credit here. But this, and I don't want to say it's the end, but after all of the medicine and the work, I literally was like dancing and so excited after the last ceremony. I'm like, oh, healed. And I was just telling Louis that I need to put a post-it note up on my bathroom mirror that says, I am healed and uh fear off, love on.
Love
Because
it.
those are like that was that mantra. Victoria actually shared it with me. She's a mutual friend of ours. And she like right before we were like headed down to Peru this time around. Um and it really works. It really works. Yeah.
Fear off,
Fear
love
off,
on. Is that the
love
mantra?
on. And I'm pretty
Wow.
sure Hamilton used it a lot during the ceremonies as well. Fear off. Yeah, it really works. It's so
Off with the fear.
this is the first time that in as far as I can remember that I feel like no fear. Like I have this like space, like this space kind of like in the middle of my chest. And that was actually a realization I had as like part of this healing that the worry or the fear. So I don't think I shared this on this podcast, but I was diagnosed last year with breast cancer and went through surgeries and radiation treatment and was also recommended some chemotherapy and some hormone therapy, which I declined the chemotherapy and I declined the hormone therapy, and now I'm doing just all kinds of other health. What do you call it? There's so many other things you could do to be healthy, and I'm doing all those other things basically.
You're living healthy.
Yeah, I'm living a healthy life, like making different choices, learning all of the choices that there are to make, learning all of the kind of like elements that go into a healthy body, healthy life, healthy all the systems. But I realized like the thought of like being scared of what happens if the cancer comes back or what if is one of the worst possible thoughts I could be having. Or like the
Mm.
thing that would probably make the cancer come back is having that like constant like in the background. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? And I realized that after one of the ceremonies, and I was just like, yeah, I just have to be done with that. Like I have to decide, like I'm done with those thoughts.
And so for you, how did the ayahuasca and the master shaman who's guiding the ceremony help you to create new patterns of behavior, or, new neural networks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's what the ayahuasca does anyway. I think it helps to create a new neural network. So the process is like a co-creation between the ayahuasca and the participants, and then the maestro who's leading the ceremony, because he's going to be guiding the ceremony based on everyone's intentions. So I had the intention, my primary intention, it was funny, I was telling Victoria, I'm on a business trip because I was like, I'm all business. Like, I am taking care of this intention. I had many others, but this was like my top, was that I just wanted, like, full healing of my physical body, balancing like the hormones and the digestive system and the immune system. And I don't know, like, to the extent that actually happened. I think we do still have to like do some other stuff with that. Um, and then also like secondary, like I said, there are some other intentions, but also like full healing of like spiritual, emotional, energetic, like, did I cover it all? Anyway, those
Spiritual
other,
healing, yeah.
yeah, like the
Energetic
other,
healing,
all the other things in
the
the,
whole
of the
shebang.
whole person. So how does that happen then over the week? I mean, I don't know exactly what Hamilton's doing, but like I know we did like healing in different dimensions. So like healing the fourth dimension and the third dimension and the fourth dimension, which I forget which one is which, but like one is time and one is space. So like healing those with like the higher dimensions, like bringing in different kinds of spirits that could offer healing, like
Mm, mm.
Jesus. And I mean, Papatua then could bring you in other spirits. So Papatua is going to be the head medicine spirit of ayahuasca. I mean, yeah, I think it's just holding the intention and then working with the spirits.
Yeah, it makes full sense to me. We're describing about taking spirits out, bringing spirits in, taking the spirits out that were based in the illness, and bringing spirits in that are based in the healing and the medicine, to get you better. And in modern shamanism, there's a really specific term for it, and it's called your spiritual lattice.
Mm.
And that's literally, what you're made up of. And shamans know how to be able to release certain spirits that are part of the lattice and bring new spirits in. And the medicine practitioners know how to be able to do that in order to be able to create a positive change for you. And yeah, talking with you since you came back, I mean, you seem to have a new light about you.
Yeah, I mean, the ceremonies were amazing. It was like the most potent, the strongest medicine that I've experienced working with Hamilton. And we've been working together. I mean, it's been 15 years now. And it was definitely, yeah, like the most intense.
Yeah. Since coming back, um, with integrating, what you have learned and these new patterns of being, how's that manifesting for you? Like,
Well,
what has changed in your daily life?
I mean, I think the integration process is just so long that, especially with something like as powerful as ayahuasca, I mean, so much moves and changes that like you can't even begin to understand. And to be honest, like I've had experiences like over the summer, we did some medicine together that like integrated stuff for me from like the first times that I've worked with Hamilton. So like, 15 years later, I was like, oh, like integrating stuff that I had already kind of learned and gone through, but like in a different way. So, I mean, what's new since I got home? I mean, I just feel so amazing. I don't know if like I've really integrated anything yet. Just really living in like a state of, like I said, I have like so much less fear, no fear. I'm used to having like a low level fear running in the background at all time. I don't even know if like recognized it in my body all the time because it was just always there. I'm more so like how I recognized fear was I'd have to catch myself like in fearful thoughts. Um, yeah, so I mean, I guess like it just renewed my so aside from like living without the fear, it renewed my relationships with like Papatua and the spirits, and like just like deepened all of them. So it's hard to say exactly like how it's been integrated. I mean, I suppose, right, like sometimes I'll think, oh shoot, I have to get a mammogram soon. And I'm like, oh, okay, but that's okay. Like it's just something I have to do. Whereas I would maybe then think like, oh God, I have to get this mammogram and what's gonna happen? Like, go into like all these like thoughts that, but yeah, like fearful thoughts, worrying thoughts.
So instead of going into the fearful thoughts, is this where this mantra is coming in for you of not even indulging these fearful thoughts and just the fear off, love on?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
That's awesome.
I know. I really highly recommend that mantra. It's so good.
Yeah, I'm gonna
So
definitely
good.
start working with that.
Yeah, yeah, I love it.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, with the integration process, I wasn't meaning of like, oh, you've integrated it and then it just like stops. No, I wasn't meaning it in that way. I just was meaning it as far as, since then, like what has changed for you. And I think that's awesome that you really let go of the fear and brought it to love. It's
Yeah, totally. I mean, I've been
powerful.
working on it a lot as well. I mean, I had recognized that it was pervasive and had been like practicing getting rid of it. But yeah, I was just able to like, I guess, purge a lot of it and realize yeah, like I had just mentioned, realize yeah, like the extent to like how detrimental it could be if I don't, if I continue to hold on to it. I mean, and it really, I think it's not for only like the health, but it's just, I was always really embarrassed about myself. And I mean, that fear is like all gone. The last ceremony, I was like able to sing out loud and like have a voice. And um, yeah, I've been able to like be on it, more honest at work so far and like, express my I will and I will not, and I don't like this, and this is a no for me at work. Yeah, so like I guess also more honesty, more just like find myself like standing up straighter. It was an overall like just an amazing experience.
That's
So
awesome. I'm glad
good.
you had the experience.
Yeah, yeah, me too. I'm so glad.
Yeah, now you've gotten something beneficial from it that has helped
Yeah,
improve your life. That's really
yeah.
cool.
I
Yeah.
mean, I think you always do, right? I mean, it's medicine.
Yeah, you mentioned Papatua. Could you describe for me your relationship with the head medicine spirit of ayahuasca?
Hmm. So I don't know if I've said this on this podcast before, but my shamanism is like a little bit wonky. And it definitely kind of uh, maybe my practice, I don't know if it said it like waxes and wanes, but maybe sometimes I'm more into it than others. Or maybe just like I'm practicing something different that makes me feel like I'm like more intensely practicing shamanism than not. But so like I said, Papatua is the head medicine spirit of ayahuasca, meaning he kind of like is the conglomeration of all the spirits and like directs the show. So yeah, the night that Hamilton called him in the ceremony was the first time I ever really had more of like a visionary representation of him, like the whole space just became like Papatua. You're just like, oh, okay. And I had worked, like I've worked with ayahuasca for a while, so I would really just, I was always just like very grateful and like kind of like almost like prayer, I suppose, like how you would pray to God. I've always just kind of like called on Papatua like before I went to bed. Papatua and Abuela Sinango, I always like call on the both of them. And then Abuela Sinango is going to be the head medicine spirit of Sinango. But this time around, it was way more. I was like, all right, we've had the initial relationship. I'm good there. But it was like I could ask Papatua for help, and I could like direct it a little bit more, direct the relationship more, like asking for the help for with the things that I wanted. And yeah, it really worked. Like I got lots of like I guess like insights into like things I should be doing, and yeah, all from Papatua.
What were those insights?
Like just some stuff about work, like kind of like decisions that I should make or actions I want to pursue for that I want to pursue at work. I was asking for help with creating with like continuing to create my breath work practices in business. One night there was a there was like a I guess it was a frog. I don't know what it was outside the window going like it was like incessant, and I couldn't relax because it was like really holding my brain to that like so I was like, Papatua, you need to like tell that thing to turn it down or to find a different rhythm. So this is one thing I was really good at this time around was the like asking and then like waiting and then receiving rather than like like nonstop like asking, almost like I may be worried that it's not gonna like that the request isn't gonna be made. But that thing stopped. I mean, that's all I have to say. I was like, thank you, Papatua.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
so
Or some nights
cool.
I'd be like, all right, Papatua, you need to turn the medicine off. I'll put my head in the shower. I will not fully get in, but you need to do your part and turn the medicine down. So yeah, those are like some of the ways that I worked with him over the course of the week. And yeah, now just like remembering, like, oh yeah, Papatua, like ask Papatua to help you with this, ask Papatua to help you with that. So I guess that's like another way of integrating that
Yeah,
medicine.
yeah, integrating, uh, calling on the head medicine spirit in your daily life. Be there
Mm-hmm.
in your daily life. It's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see. What else? What else? Is there
I
anything else?
had an experience. It's hard for me to remember a lot of what happened because it was just so intense. Um, that it was just so intense. The ceremonies were so intense for me. But I did have this one ceremony where Hamilton had called in Jesus, and I invited Jesus in, and he came into my body and helped to come into like all of the cells and all of the DNA and all of the molecules and all of the particles and all of like the quantum in the body, and help to make renew them and make them all new, and then helped me to keep saying so I was like so I was digging up the soil of my body, like turning over all my cells, and then together we planted new cells of new health. So I thought that was pretty cool that night when that happened.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Jesus Christo showing up for you.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah, it was so cool. I'm just so grateful. That's something that I learned. I learned that the flow of the flow of the universe is to give and to receive. It's like to give and to receive. And then also in there is like the gratitude, right? I was talking about this with Hamilton, how, I don't love the right or wrong, but I think this comes from maybe like the Catholic mass that I would attend, where they say like it is right to give thanks and praise. I guess they were saying like it's correct to say that, or like it's factual. Like that's part of the thing. Like praise and thank you, God, thank you, Jesus, thank you, spirits, thank you, ayahuasca, thank you, how's it, thank you, blah 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 blah, like everyone, everything, like thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, like just gratitude all around for everything and everyone, and yeah, and that's like the natural. Then you're like in the, you know, the flow of life.
Yeah. Yeah. So living in gratitude,
Yeah, I mean
that's
that
a,
feels good, right? It feels
it
good to
does.
like appreciate people, appreciate things, let them
It does.
know. I mean, it feels good for everyone all around, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I'd like to hear how you experience it, but for me, when I can find gratitude for the small things, just like the simple pleasures life has to offer, that it could help me find gratitude for the things that I might find to be really challenging.
Mm, that's interesting. I mean, I think it makes sense though, because it's a practice. So the better you get at it, then you could like wield that skill in more situations that require more skill or right that are not as easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Mm.
Dr. Sam talks about gratitude as the molecule as the enzymes that help with receiving. So I think it also helps to, I don't want to say to get more, but to notice more or to be able to then like right, like exactly like you're saying, use it more.
Yeah, because when you find gratitude for the smaller things that might just go unlooked, you're building it.
Yeah, for
So like
sure.
you said, it's a practice and you build it and you accumulate it. The more you accumulate, the more you're capable of wielding it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that goes for most of these positive things that we want to be experiencing, like finding joy in small things, finding awe in small things. And then like when you find that in your body, then it's easier to embody it, feel it, use it, call on it when the situation may be showing you something that you would not normally say, like, I'm grateful for this, or like this brings me joy. I really just think it's a matter of practicing.
Yeah, yeah. Grateful for like the easier aspects. I'm grateful for the challenges.
Yeah, I suppose we got to be grateful for it all, right? I mean, it's all going to come at you no matter what. Ain't no stopping that.
That's true. Ain't no stopping the universe.
No, no, there is ain't no stopping God. I mean,
Ain't no stopping God, that's
ain't
for
no
sure.
stopping God. Oh, so one of the first ceremonies, or the first ceremony actually, because we were talking about patience. You and I were talking about patience on one of the last podcasts. So I was also talking about, I guess it was like almost like manifesting with Hamilton. We were talking about, you know, and we didn't specifically say this, but in my head, I did have the question, like what about all these, like, to hear people saying like quantum leaps?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, right. Like I made this thing happen overnight. Uh, or, but then also there's the things that take, 10 years, 20 years. Like Hamilton was talking about Blue Morpho, for example, it's been 20 years for him. And he was saying how he's finally, it's finally kind of evolving in the way that he wants. Like a lot of the things he's been working at are kind of finally coming to fruition in the way that he wants. And it's taken lots of small little steps, lots of time, lots of calling in the help from the spirits. But then also he was telling me the story about how one day he said, I want a dog. I want a German Shepherd. And some girl he was working with said, like, do you want a dog? And later on that afternoon, like brought a dog to him.
Wow.
So, I mean, it brought up the, what's what, right? What, how does it actually work? How does the co-creating work? So then
Yeah, I'm
oh, go
sorry.
on.
I didn't mean
No,
to,
it's
no, no,
okay.
no, go ahead.
No, you want to say something?
I was gonna say it's like when you uncover a mystery, 100 more show up.
Yeah, well, it's the pattern, right? It's all around. So
Yeah.
then in that night and the ceremony, what I learned or what I saw was how long that it took for God to create everything. So like even let's just take humans, right? Like how long did it take for humanity to get to the universe, right? Like first, I don't even know like what was created first, the universe, let's say. And then like the galaxy had to be created. The Milky Way galaxy had to be created, probably after all these other galaxies, because the Milky Way has to, or maybe Milky Way was first. I don't know, because from what I've read, like the galaxy has to be pretty old to like sustain this type of life and like these type of planets. Although I don't know. I think I'm extrapolating that from a book I read about anyway. And then like the thing about the sun, like how long did the sun have to exist before all the planets formed? And then how long did the earth have to exist before, life could even live outside the water in the environment that was like, could sustain life outside water. And then once the animals like started, the plants started to be created, then the animals started to be created. And how long has it been since dinosaurs existed that humans were created? And then it takes, so I mean like that's how long it takes for a human being to be created, is like as long as it took like that first human. So
Mm.
I was like, fuck, God has the ultimate amount of patience. Like he is one patient motherfucker. Like he waited that long for for all of it to happen. And then you say a human is created in 9 months. I mean, yes and no, right? It took all of that time before it. And now
That's a
you
good
got to do
point.
it in 9 months. I almost feel like that's like that's the difference between like someone saying like I quantum leaped and someone saying like, well, it took me like 20 years to build this business.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to describe too, like the whole quantum leap, because like I get what you're saying. There are definitely some things where it takes consistent work day in and day out to be able to build something that you have a vision for and that you want to create. And there's some things where in one instant you're one way, and then something changes, and then in another instant you're a completely whole nother way.
Yeah, like your perspective just shifts.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what I was saying about there's a mystery aspect to it where I think there are answers, but when you have one answer to it, it just creates another 100 questions to where
Mm.
then you can go and look for the answers to it. That's what I consider to be a journey and an exploration, and one worthy of partaking, because it's through experiential knowledge and wisdom of what you're understanding about your part of this universe.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. I mean, right. That's the thing. It's like your part. It's not like you're, I mean, you're the whole and you're not, right? It's not like
yeah,
you're out there just saying, like, make that happen. I
yeah,
think too, it's the extent of it, right? Like the dog already existed. It's an easy channel to get a dog if you want one, but then, so I think it depends maybe on what the thing is that you're creating. So right now it's very easy to make humans because the process, it's been perfected.
yeah. And also too, this comes to mind, you mentioning this, is with this story about Hamilton, putting it out to the universe that he would like a dog, and then the universe responding, and then a lady asking if he would like a dog, and he gets a dog. It's it's this mystery of like, how can the universe respond? But it does, and it can, and I know it because I've experienced similar things where I put something out there and the universe totally responds with like a wink wink, hey, I got your back, buddy, kind of
Mm.
thing.
It's an interesting thing though, right? Because you could also, I feel like you could look at the world and say like, but what about all the people who don't seemingly seem to have someone at their back, or all the
Yeah.
situations, or all the, whatever the word is that you want to use.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
maybe they feel like the universe does in small ways, and maybe that's me looking at something else and saying that's missing when I'm just looking at it in a not being the thing experiencing it. So I don't actually know
Yeah.
what the fuck is going on.
Well, I mean, it brings up a point of, for all of the problems that exist in the universe is creating it. But then on the
Mm,
same aspect, all of the solutions that exist in the universe, the solution is creating that side by side with all of the problems that exist. And
mm.
we still don't really know, you know, we don't know how for the most part. Some things we do. Uh, but I don't think our species has gotten very far at figuring these things out. I think we've gotten some good ground, but I mean, if you look at it as far as like how long trees have been evolving on the earth versus how long human beings have been evolving on the earth, well, those trees have been out there way longer than our species,
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, aren't we like the newest species on the block?
Yeah, I had this interesting thought the other day of it was like the missing link, right? Of like we're trying to like find the link between us and like the chimps. But like how many species of there was between that might have just you know have been extincted and we
Mm,
don't even know about it. So like you see like in the theory of evolution of like that chart that I'm trying to depict where it's like from like
yeah.
a chimp to a human. Well, I mean, we know that humans and um oh God, why am I drawing a blank right now? Neanderthals, we know that like humans and Neanderthals existed you know, side by side with one another for a period of time until Neanderthals just, went extinct. So it's kind of like this it's this mystery of, well, like, how did us humans become the way that we are? But you
Yeah.
know, I,
I mean,
you know
I've
what
got
I
some ideas on that, but
yeah,
no,
yeah.
I think exactly what you're saying is right. I mean, we only know what's written down, and we only know, and even what's written down isn't the truth. And then you only know like what you could find out there, and not everything has actually been uncovered. So there is so much mystery.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just so much. It's like it's so mind blowing.
Yeah, it's so mind blowing. There's so much mystery out there. It's pretty fucking amazing.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
Yeah.
Have you noticed the plant medicines that you partake in um, unravel the mysteries for you a little bit and shine light in areas that were once maybe a mystery to you, but through it you've gained an understanding.
I mean, I suppose because it was like through the start and then the exploration, like with plant medicine, that I mean, I'm here now. Like that's part of my evolution, like my own personal evolution. I, yeah, so it would be hard to tease the two apart.
Ooh, I've got a good question for you. Okay, so what would you say to someone who may be going through cancer that is listening to this conversation, that is thinking about going to Peru or wherever to drink ayahuasca? What advice would you give them?
Mm. Well, I think it's best for everybody to do what they think is best for them. That's actually, there's this book called Radical Remission. And so what it is it's a book written by, I believe she's a researcher, or maybe she was like a social worker and then a researcher. But so what she did was she researched all of the I don't know if the word would be like medical ways that people saw a remission in their cancer. And then she compiled the book. So it's things like supplements, diet. And one of them is following your own intuition. So I think that's important. Like you have to do what you feel is best for yourself and best for your body.
Yeah. And
And
that
if
might
you,
even mean Western medical treatment, right?
yeah, I mean, I did both. I think you have to do what you feel is best for you. Like if you feel like ayahuasca is the thing, then yeah, go drink ayahuasca and make sure you go to Blue Morpho and not anyone else out there. But like, right, if you feel like you want to have chemotherapy, then go get that chemotherapy. That's
Yeah.
what I learned this time around. So I actually had two cancers, and the first cancer that I had was non-Hodgkin's lymphoma when I was in my 20s. And this is before, so I just said, my evolution with plant medicine basically started 15 years ago, when I first drank ayahuasca. And since then, various other plants. And then, but before that, I had like no coping skills, no like spirituality, no nothing. I was a mess. So this was in my early 20s and I was sick and I just like did whatever the doctor told me to do. There was no like I just had no idea. And I realized this time around there was like specific things that like were a big no for me, or a yes, or I don't know, I'm going to get more information on that. Or like I knew how to make a decision, I knew like, oh, I need to get more information. I also need someone to help me get the information or help me make not even make the decision, but I need someone to talk to about this with, because I don't even know, like I was frozen. I'm like, I don't even know what to do. So actually, like what really was helpful for me was by collecting all the information, knowing the things that I wanted to do, but then also like I worked with Dr. Sam and Hamilton to help me like make this decision because I didn't even know how to do it. And it was then I realized, right, it was like listening to my body. And then it was after that when I read it in the book that one of the important things is for listening to your own intuition when it comes to making your medical decisions. So that was like a huge thing for me on this whole journey, was right, actually like knowing what I really wanted and then being able to like say yes and no to certain things.
Mhm. Yeah, I heard it on a podcast with Hamilton, where the person you went to, and just for the listeners out there, but for the person who had guided Melissa in these ceremonies, I heard him on a podcast once say and it was specifically about the topic of cancer and ayahuasca. And I think he said something along the lines of go to a place that is going to be applicable for you so that you understand what is going on. And then if that doesn't work, go and drink the ayahuasca and to see if that works.
Hmm.
So I was going to ask, is that sort of what happened for you this time around, where you went to the medical doctor, or how did that all play out for you?
So yeah, I mean, the first things that I did were like the medical treatment. Once I found out, I did and I mean, now that I even went through it, I would probably, like, if it all happened again, I would probably maybe do it differently. Um, there were definitely like some things I was a hard no for right away. And then the other things I really had to find the will to live, honestly. That was something that I had to do before I was able to say yes to any treatment. It was twisted. My will has been twisted. And I don't think we've talked about this. I've definitely mentioned Dr. Sam. I know I even just mentioned her, but she created these coping styles, or wouldn't say she created them. She, recognized 12 patterns of that humans kind of, I don't think the word is inherit, but get based on the parenting you receive from 0 to 5. And then there are these certain ways you deal with that. They fall into like 12 categories. And one is a will injury. So when you are at the age of like between 2 to 3, your will, uh, is constantly kind of like put down. You don't get your way a lot. So children need to be optimally indulged. They need to they need to have boundaries, and they need to have their parents say yes to some things. And then they also need to be optimally frustrated. They need to have their parents say no as well. And so my will was like all twisted. So I was frustrated. Um, and so I would oftentimes like find myself saying like, not that I wanted to kill myself, but like, I just want this all to end. Like, so there was always this kind of like, I wanted, not that I wanted to die, but like, I just wanted like things to end. And so to me, I didn't ever question, I kind of knew that like I didn't want to die, but like I also like didn't know to ask myself or to like, I don't know if it wasn't not being honest, but there was just something like not in there that I didn't know, like it didn't feel exactly right. But then I never had asked myself like, but well, do you want to live? And so when I finally like asked myself that question, it was like, yeah, okay, I do want to live. So I had to like find that will, like, yeah, I'm willing to live. And then like, and then these are the things I'm willing to do. Like these are the things I'm willing to put my body through. So yeah, I mean, I started off with like I said, I had a surgery, so that was the first treatment, and then I was willing to do the radiation, and I did that. And I mean, to be honest, I would do that differently. I might not do that again. There's a lot of negative effects of that. Am I answering your question? I feel like I went
Yeah.
off track.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. No, and like just I find it very inspiring you being in this place of clarity and strength to be able to share this story with me and the listeners. And I find this all
Yeah. Thank
super
you. Thank
fascinating.
you. I really appreciate that. And I honestly think it is so important because for me, again, to be able to say what it is you want to do when Western medicine is just saying, do this, like this is the gold standard of treatment, medicine, surgery, blah, 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 all these like things that insurance pays for, but nothing outside is really considered, is considered, what's the word here? Well, is considered or is I don't know if like viable option. And I'm not trying to say like that Western medicine doesn't help cancer. I mean, I was cured from a cancer by having chemotherapy and radiation. Like that cancer never came back. And if I didn't get that treatment, I probably would have died with the cancer that I had. So I'm not here to tell anyone like don't do it or that it's awful for everybody. I think just every situation is going to be different and it just depends on what you feel is best for yourself. But yeah, I think to be able to say that is important because I think there are so many people out there that'll say things like, I'll do whatever it takes for my kids. And I'm not trying to, say anything bad about people that have those thoughts or say that. But so to be able to do something different or to go against what doctors are recommending, it does take like I think a lot of courage to go against the grain.
Sure, sure. And
Yeah.
I think it's incredibly wise what you're saying too, as far as seeing at least what the doctors have to say first.
Yeah. I think another thing that is so important about that is the doctors do not present I shouldn't say all doctors, but a lot of doctors do not present information in I don't know if the way to say it is factual, but they present figures and like statistics in a way where they're not actually accurately representing the statistics to you. So that's a huge important thing that people
Mm.
need to be aware of. I actually read it in the breast cancer handbook that the doctor gives you or the doctor gave me on our first meeting. But it's really manipulative the way that they present statistics. So you have to be really, really careful with that. And you have to actually ask them, like, how many people in 100 did this treatment benefit? Or like, how many people in 100 benefited from this kind of treatment? That's the question you
Yeah.
need to ask.
Mm. I've also heard too, as far as using ayahuasca as a form of medicine, it's the same thing as far as Western medicine, of that there's going to be people who are treated and there's going to be people who take the ayahuasca and aren't going to be treated.
Mm. Well, you and I had a conversation about this similarly prior. I think it was on a podcast episode. Whereas if you have a staph infection, they're going to tell you, go get some antibiotics. Like, why
Yeah,
would you treat that with ayahuasca?
you wouldn't. You wouldn't.
Right. So I think that there are some things that, right, could benefit and then some that cannot. I mean, I also think it depends, right? If you go in there thinking like, this isn't going to work, like, is it going to work? I don't know. It's a
Mm,
co-creative process.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I just
Yeah.
I love talking about medicine, and I mean, I'm no Western doctor or anything like that, but when it comes to understanding that a medicine is something that is going to get someone better, and seeing it on you, and you describing and telling the story of really how you've gotten better and finding the will to live, I just find that incredibly inspiring, to be real with you. I think that's and to put it in the way, no, to put it in the way of what kind of information you got from Dr. Sam about across the will. I totally can resonate with that one, and I could tell you. I could tell you about my will to give up coffee and how sort of a bumpy road it's been. Um, but uh, you know, presenting it in that way, I just it just makes sense.
Yeah, it really
Yeah.
does. It really totally does. It was interesting to me because I had remembered actually asking Hamilton like maybe a year or so ago, like, who is the head medicine spirit of me? Like, I felt like I didn't have control of myself. And I think it was that will injury. Like, my will was like unconsciously like sabotaging me. And I was like, where am I in all of this? So I thought that was
Mm.
really interesting. It was like without Dr. Sam, I would have never, I don't think anyone would have ever like helped me figure that out.
Yeah, and just on the topic of will too, um, I find it interesting with will how when you're using will to change a behavior, it's absolute, but it's absolutely going to eventually exhaust you. And so at the point
Mm.
where it manifests is at the point where you have to, let that will go and recoup.
You know what I think about that? I think you have to have the willingness. And then, as long as you have the willingness, then you could be open to however or whatever help comes when you ask. So I
Mm,
think it's not, I don't think it's that you have to force and use the will. You almost have to allow yourself just to be willing. And then, how you say, like, like it's the journey, it's the exploration, then that's what it is. Instead of like, oh, I'm doing it this way. It's no,
yeah.
I'm willing.
Yeah, where I was going with that is okay. So I might have mentioned this to you, but I wrote down in my journal that I will give up coffee for 30 days, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
then, but that's all I wrote down in
I
it.
remember you
And
telling me
then,
this.
yeah, and then I was like, well, I didn't write down that would do it 30 days in a row. So, and then I justified it and I had some coffee. And then last week I drank coffee every day of the week. And I only have 8 days so far. But then I wrote down in my journal that I will quit coffee consecutively for 22 days in a row to make it 30 days in a row. And so I'm like looking at the light at the end of the tunnel there, like, okay, that is when I could give up the will to stop to stop
Mm.
drinking coffee for 30 days.
Then
And
you can
then
give up the will.
it
I'm done with this
yeah,
will.
yeah, well, yeah, they're just to like let it go. And so, but I definitely noticed though how mentally it is like it's an activity to put forth that. And then I also noticed too when I'm
With the
putting
activity
forth,
for the will.
yeah, it's a will strengthening type of thing
Mm.
that I'm doing. And I mean, I'm doing it not only for that benefit. That's kind of like a side effect of it. I'm doing it mainly because I've, been drinking coffee for like 15 years in a row, almost daily on a daily basis. And I just think that for me to continually do that, I don't think it's good for my body. So
Yeah.
I want to change that aspect of my behavior and give it up for a period of time. But I notice when I'm doing that and cultivating that will, then I have the will then to put towards other things that I know I need to change as, and I can then use that will if I can't just move that type of behavior in any other way besides using the will for it to
Mm.
change.
That's interesting. It sounds a little bit forceful to me, but I'm not sure. There is also a thing of a
I
frustrated
think it
injury
is.
where you're withstanding and it's too much will. Your heels are dug in and you are not going to let that go.
You know what that is? I know what you're talking about. That's putting your will towards things that it just might be inappropriate, or maybe not inappropriate, but uh it's just an ineffective use of will. So okay, now I have an example of this. I don't know if you've ever watched the Lex Friedman podcast, right?
Oh, no, I've heard of it though. Louis listens to it sometimes, I think.
All right, so I've heard him on his podcast say that he will interview Vladimir Putin, right? Now, whether he does or doesn't is totally up to Vladimir Putin, right? Like whether you try to put like your will and try to forcefully dominate some other person, well, they have a will too. And you might not be able to do that. So like you saying, like your feet dug into the ground, and you might not be able to like move that thing just based on your own will. What I find to be an effective use of will is when you have behaviors that you need to change on the inside, and then
Mm,
using that will because you're the one with control over it and no
yeah.
other.
Yeah.
And
I
so
think like,
that I find to be effective use of
yeah,
will.
that makes sense. Because when you're using your will on something outside of you, it's this. It's like
Yes.
life is butting up against you and you're butting up like against life and you're just like
Right. But when you use
you're
it on the
locked
inside
in.
of you, you're the only one you're butting up against.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I still
Yeah.
think I'm going to take the softer approach and just start to be willing
I don't know.
and allow
I
the
mean,
willingness.
maybe. Yeah,
That's
no, I
also
get what you're
something I
saying.
realized in Peru this time around. Like it's a lot of willingness. Like I'm willing to be healed. And that's kind of like goes back to that question too, like or what how you would ask, like, I don't know if it's going to benefit someone. Like, are you willing to let it benefit you? I think sometimes
Mm,
maybe.
yeah, uh, it sounds like saying yes to the healing, or saying yes to doing something that's beneficial, whether it
Yeah, for
be,
sure.
you know, uh, going to Peru to a reputable place, and drinking with people who have integrity, who are the guides, or it could be like saying yes to the green juice,
Yeah,
or
saying yes
say
to the stuff that's healthy for you and that makes you feel good and that, well, yeah, like gets you in the direction of the where you want to move. Yeah, that's really important. Oh, just being aware to like be able to make the decisions.
mm,
And
being
because
aware of your
that's something that we
position.
were talking about actually, was like that people have to be aware that they even have a decision or a choice.
Yeah,
Like it's a choice you could turn off the news. You don't have to listen to it. Just be
no,
uneducated like me. I know that I'm uneducated, just be like unaware about the news. It doesn't help you
yeah.
at all.
Well, oh, okay. So you bring up the news, right? I've got a good example for this, of like of reasons really, for turning off the news, right? Because you get information. I mean, it's kind of hard these days to just like find pure information out there that's not through the filter of the news, but it's out there. It's
Primary
just hard to find.
sources.
Yeah, it's just but okay. So I turned on this thing about breaking point, or it was on the channel Breaking Points, and I don't know. They were talking about like things that happened during the pandemic. And like essentially they were just like, this guy's an idiot, this guy's a rat, like all of these kinds of things. And I was like watching this, I was like thinking, like, in no way is that helpful to just get on there and talk about another human being that way. And, I just think like, do I think that there are, like, I don't even want to get into it, but I'm just, my whole point is like that aspect of the news where, it's all about like pointing fingers and blame and shame and all of these things. And I'm not saying like, that people shouldn't be held responsible or they shouldn't take responsibility. They should. But, watching these things that are really just like these, I don't even know. Like, it's just like all based in anger. And I mean, I can get it, but I think when it's towards the public and, there's these channels that are solely based in anger, it's not helping anyone. It's
Mm-mm.
not helping anyone to
No,
demean anyone.
no, it's not helpful to watch that at all. It probably
No.
makes you feel like shit.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm laughing hearing you talk about it, but I wouldn't want to watch that.
I did. I couldn't make it all the way through. I was like, no, okay,
Sounds
halfway through,
awful.
done.
That's part of
Yeah.
being healthy is discerning like what content or what you're consuming feels good and what's, when it makes you pissed and angry and mad and frustrated and disgusted and don't watch that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good advice. Yeah. That, I think that leads into really a lot of what we've talked about as far as being aware of the content you're consuming and what it's doing to you mentally.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's so easy to just do the same thing again and again and again and again and not even realize like that's the cause of maybe your anxiety or your fear or your annoyance. Because that's
Yeah,
just what you've always done.
absolutely.
And like that's what people do. You have to be informed. You got to be an informed citizen. Informed of
Yeah.
what? Informed by who?
Well, it would be nice to be informed where it was just, pure information of like, this is what happened. Like, I don't care if it's boring. I'd rather it be boring and be factual
The boring
than
news network, the happy boring news network.
that sounds more of my speed.
I'd watch that maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'd
Yeah.
consider it. I definitely
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
consider it if it was called like the Joyful News Network or something. I remember I just had that idea one time. My brother's like, no one would want to watch that. I mean, okay, there's a problem right there. No one wants to see
Yeah.
happy news.
Yeah. I think people are addicted to drama. I think that's why the news exists the way it does.
I can't, I don't even know what to say about that. It's just cracking me up for whatever reason. I don't want to talk bad about anybody.
Well, I could say that I was addicted to drama because I turned it on the other day. But uh,
I'm addicted to drama. Do you watch like Bravo too? I feel like that's a very drama TV
no,
show.
I don't.
Like the Housewives
Honestly,
of Orange County or
do I
right
watch
now.
Bravo? I like a glass of wine with The Bachelor. No, no, I'm just kidding.
Oh my God, talk about drama, right?
Yeah, I don't. I've never really watched that. No, I'm more of like anime, battling
Mm.
demons, those type of things. Yeah, yeah, that's more my speed. But yeah, like when it comes on to YouTube, I get what you're saying no to the news. I just
Yeah, I've done that for a while now. I noticed when I even have it turned on, sometimes Louis will turn it on and I could feel like the anxiety rising in myself, even if I'm not exactly paying attention to it. And the other thing is too, it's like not at all child friendly.
yeah, you mentioned that. You mentioned that. And you know, I could when you mentioned that, I was like, hmm, I never really thought about it like that.
You're
And
like your
then
kids can't watch the news. It's not rated G or even PG. And
and
there's no
then
parental guidance on it.
and then right, so I click on the local news source, right? And I'm scrolling through, and it was like this person murdered, that person murdered, this
Yeah.
person yada yada yada. And it's like a
Yeah.
bunch of horrible shit. And then like your voice came into my head. I was like, it's not appropriate for children. I was like, I get it now. This is what she's talking about.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
legit point.
Yeah. Maybe the sports are like the weather. But other
Sports
than
and
that,
weather, yeah. Yeah.
the weather, the
Uh,
boring topic, the
yeah.
boring news network.
Yeah.
Oh, how is that weather today?
Kind of warm for
Yeah, it was kind of warm
March.
by us too, especially after yesterday. It was pretty cold out yesterday.
So do you have any other any other plant medicine journeys lined up for you?
Mm, no. Well, I am gonna go back to Peru in September and work more on my continued health. But this is going to be more of a pleasure trip, I think, than strictly business.
I hope to join you on this one.
Yeah, I hope so too. That would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. I want to work on my ability to see things. Although something I realized, well, I mean my vision, literally seeing, has improved, I think. But still, in ayahuasca, even though it's like a visionary medicine, I tend not to see a lot of stuff. But I also that had got the message like in my first ceremony that I wasn't there for, the shits and giggles. I was there to get my healing on. So, don't worry about what you're seeing. Don't worry about what you're feeling. Don't worry about having like heart opening, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that stuff's amazing. But just like, get it done. But so I do want to work on that, like literally like seeing stuff more. But I also did have the understanding that there's like an infinite amount of spirits to help, or like medicine, or just out there in the universe. And so there's like an infinite number of ways to receive that information. So it's not that it always has to be like I see this thing. It's just like
Mm,
however, whatever sense, in whatever way you sense it. That's
yeah, I get what you're
infinite.
saying. In modern shamanism, you're taught that there are an infinite number of medicines
Yeah.
to be able to use. There's an infinite number of medicine spirits. And, it's about which one is going to work. And when you define the medicine, when you define um, the right medicine to invoke next is how is it described? Hold on, I gotta think about this one. When you define what is the right medicine to use next as always being the next medicine you're going to invoke, then it's always going to be the right medicine to invoke
Mm,
next.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned like the infinite number of medicines, and that's what came to mind.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like in a sanctuary, everything's medicine.
Mhm.
That's another thing I realized. I don't think I said this today. Like, God can't do stuff for us, but God has created like an infinite amount of stuff to help us do the things that we need to want to get to do.
Yeah, yeah. I think I've become more comfortable in hanging out with you using the word God than
Mm.
I have for quite a long time.
I love God.
Yeah, saying that more.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. That feels so good.
yeah, that one's
It feels so
helpful.
good to love God. Yeah. Oh, you know what's interesting about that? I had the intention that I wanted to experience God, I suppose, or see God not just as like, you know, the guy in the throne in heaven. And this didn't happen during the trip or anything, but it was maybe a few weeks or so before. But I had that experience. Like it was just like a flash, but like I had, and it's hard to really describe exactly what happened, but I had the experience of, I guess, receiving God in a way that like wasn't that. I mean, I don't know what it was, but I was like, oh, okay, I see.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I just saw how like God, I mean, I already knew God was everywhere, but I really saw it like just everywhere. And that's like the ultimate kind of like joke. It's like the cosmic jokester. He's like the OG, the OG comedian.
Yeah, yeah. Like when you get those moments of, you know, you get like the wink, wink, kind of like, haha,
Yeah.
type of
Yeah.
thing, and you're just like, ah.
And it's like wherever you look, right? Like everyone's going like so deep, so or not even deep, like so minuscule, like looking for like the God particle, like, oh, there he is, like there's God. Like once you find him, like it's the ultimate, like you find him everywhere. It's like the ultimate like unifying thing. Like you go big, 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 up, there's God.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And also too, uh understanding that when you need knowledge, you can go to God for it. Like
Mm,
you can go to God for any kind of knowledge that you would do. God, give me the knowledge on how to be beneficial for my friends and my loved ones, and then become receptive to the answer.
yeah. Yeah. That's a beautiful thing, I think, to ask God. I mean, he's got it all.
Yeah, all of it,
Yeah.
all the knowledge. Mind blown.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm grateful for God. That is one other thing really that came out of my whole healing journey is a definite like improved relationship with God, or like a renewed and then vastly improved relationship with God. Oh, and something I realized like, right before the first ceremony is the thing that we used to say this in church, Lord, I am not worthy to receive you. And then the next line is like, but only say the word and I shall be healed. But like, who the fuck's paying attention to that? You're like, I'm like, no wonder everyone's so fucked up.
Wait, what was the second part? I didn't quite
The
catch
first
that.
part is, Lord, I am not worthy to receive you. And then you say, but only say the word and I shall be healed.
Hmm.
But like
Is that
the unworthy part's still in there, you know? It's like, I don't know, does your unconscious take those both things in, and or it's just like that one thing is in there?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's like that whole like unworthy thing. I think that is like if you buy into it, it definitely creates a lot of mental aberrations, in your field.
Yeah, it's a total delusion. Like that's not true. And what's interesting about that is I might have told you I'm reading this book. It's called A Dangerous Mystic. It's a biography about Meister Eckhart, and he's that mystic. I think he's from like the 13th century,
Yeah,
1300.
yeah, I remember you saying about this. Actually, I want to research this guy.
Yeah, it's a good book actually because I don't know much about this time period. So it like goes into like what's happening in Europe at that time and stuff. But they talk about, so he was like, I think a Dominican or a Franciscan monk, I forget which one. They're all about education, and then they're all about like being able to disseminate this education to the public through preaching. But like their aim when they're preaching is for people to know that they're sinners.
Mm,
And then you could be redeemed with the church. So like this is what the preachers are like trying to impart on people. You're a sinner. You're
yeah,
wrong. You're bad.
yeah, that's what they were
Well, it makes
doing back
sense
in the
though,
day.
right? Like the baptism is to get rid of that original sin. Like, what the fuck, church?
Yeah. Yeah, in a ceremony that we were in, I found this one fascinating that Hamilton mentioned. And, like, I never really thought about it until he mentioned this, where he said, if Jesus really did die for your sins, then we live in a world without sins. And he said, like, I don't think the
Mm,
world is really ready to accept this yet, but I mean, if
that's so
if
good.
Jesus really
Yeah.
did die for your sins, then we live in a world without sins. So that uh everything that's being preached of like you have like ancestral sin and or you have original sin, and they don't. Like you're just born, you didn't have any control over that.
Yeah.
No, I don't buy
Yeah.
it.
I mean, yeah. I'm just like blown away that humanity has just like been lied to for so long. But I knew there were a lot of lies.
No, 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 no. Yeah, humanity has been lying for so long.
Humanity's been lying. Ay, ay, ay.
And probably not even realizing
God's
it. I
probably like, you
did.
dumb fuckers. Like, I
It might come as
what
like
more do you want me to do?
maybe it comes from like good intentions, but you know what they say about that. you know, the road to hell is paved in good intentions. Perhaps, uh, perhaps those intentions really did lead to hell.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, that sounds about right to me. I mean, I'm sure there are some other things mixed in there.
Yeah. 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 It's like, what is sin? What is even sin? There's really not even any
No, I
kind
mean
of
it's
like,
made up, right? All those things
yeah,
that you shouldn't do, or I mean, of course you like don't want to kill your neighbor and you don't want to, if you take a vow of marriage, you don't want to covet your neighbor's wife or whatever.
right.
But you don't want to steal your neighbor's property. But yeah, those things aren't actually like, you know, well, supposedly they were given to Moses. Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Actually, now that you mentioned that, I was watching this documentary yesterday, actually, and it was about Egypt, and there was I forget the name of the church, but it's on top of the mountain, and supposedly it's where um, Moses got the commandments. And I found it really interesting. It's like, I wonder what came first. Was it the church there, or was it Moses? And they sort of like were like, oh yeah, this is the spot. Let's build it right here.
what came first, Moses or the church? I don't know. My like knowledge of history gets a little bit fuzzy back then. I think there is something there about the like I remember reading something about like the writing, like because that was around the time that writing was becoming a big like a tool
Mm.
around the time of when Moses came back with the commandments.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That's fascinating is like how writing and how religion have evolved with each other.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's such a good book about it's called The Goddess and the Alphabet, or like the
Hmm.
goddess versus the alphabet, maybe. Because I mean, the author's what's the word? Like hypothesis, I suppose, is that it was like the advent of writing that did away with like the goddess culture and
Mm.
like the newer religions. Well, I mean, they're not new now, but right, like that's when they started writing things down and like it really like kind of like cemented like linearity, like they're reading like from left to right and logic and all like left brain kinds of things. Whereas before it was more like probably whole brain, right brain,
Hieroglyphs.
creative. Um, no, I mean just in general, not necessarily um yeah, I mean, I don't know, like if hieroglyphs would be considered writing. I think they probably or those pictures, right? Those are more like a picture representation of something,
Yeah,
whereas like the letter is like that very like specific symbol with the sound, and the really only represents
yeah,
that, and the word only represents that, and whereas the picture could be like the symbol could have many meaning. Like those kind of symbols could have like many meanings based on who looks at it. You could interpret it in a variety of ways, whereas the word is like the word.
yeah. It's really funny. We were mentioning like how uh, God is everywhere. God is,
Mm.
and this is funny. But there's this one person that I used to listen to. His name's Juan Milo Duquette. He's an interesting fellow, but he was like, if he's like, you know, if the Bible is the words of God, well, so is the menu at McDonald's for that matter. Uh,
Amen. Oh my God. Yeah, that's funny. That's so true.
yeah, yeah,
That's a good way of looking at it. I like that. That reminds me, I tell my kids, like that God is everywhere. So we talk about, I'm like, yeah, when you go to the bathroom, like you're pooping out God into the toilet.
yeah. Wow, that's like a really practical understanding.
Yeah,
I
they
would
really like, I
imagine for
think
like
it
a
really
kid.
cemented that for them.
Yeah, shit, you cemented it for me right now. Yeah, that's funny. Hmm.
Yeah. All
Is
right.
there is there anything else that that's important for you to mention in this healing journey?
No, I think I talked a lot about it. I would say what is very important, and I think I did mention this, is that if you do want to go drink ayahuasca, the only center I would recommend is Blue Morpho. But if you want to do your research, I would certainly recommend that, to find someone very reputable, very capable, very trained, and very professional who is going to conduct the ceremony for you. And like I said, I
Yeah,
personally have been drinking ayahuasca for the past 15 years, and I would only drink with Hamilton and Blue Morpho. So I think that,
yeah, I could add on to that, not in the ayahuasca department because I've never drank ayahuasca, but as far as being guided in the Trinity retreats and as far as other things that I've learned from Maestro Hamilton, he's a pretty legitimate dude. He's a solid dude, and I think he's a pretty cool guy, nice human being in this world. So I definitely, yeah, would recommend him.
yeah, yeah. So make sure you do your research on the ayahuasca center that you select. And if you don't want to do the research, take my advice and just go to Blue Morpho.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm grateful that you got on and opened up about everything that you suffered from and that you've found healing
Yeah, me
for.
too.
And I just I love hearing about those types of journeys. And I find it amazing and fascinating and a miracle on this earth.
Yeah, it was a miracle, isn't it? I am healed. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, ayahuasca. Thank you, Papatua. Thank you, Hamilton. Thank you, Melissa, for doing it all too. And
Fear
thank you
off,
for
love
telling me
on.
that I'm inspiring. I appreciate that. It warms my heart.
I'm gonna practice the fear off, love on.
Yeah. Oh my God. Definitely everyone do that too. Because, like, once the fear is turned off, maybe in the society at large, like, maybe things will be different.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Once the fear gets turned off and the love really gets turned on, I'm just
Hmm.
understanding, that we're all on this planet together. We're all in this thing together.
I mean, we're in it to win it. Come on.
Yeah, we're in it to win it.
Yeah. I'm here for the love. I know there's some other stuff that goes on, but like ultimately that's like thing underneath everything.
Yeah, well, I
That's
mean, like,
creating everything.
yeah, what you
Why
say
are we
is like,
creating other stuff with all this
take,
love we have?
yeah, and like what you're saying, taking the focus off the fear and putting it on the light and shining the
Yeah,
light onto the fear.
certainly.
Yeah. Well, I think that's about it, right?
I think so too. This is a fun conversation. Thanks
Yeah.
everybody for listening and stay tuned for our next episode.
Yep. In about probably 2 weeks.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Goodbye.